Hello my friend and welcome to Mission Faisal Azib. I hope that you are well. Let's now implement a feature of player holding the current score. And let's again see our flowchart to understand this. And once again, this flowchart basically represents the division of our big problem, which is to implement this game into smaller problems, which are all of this green square, basically sub-problems here. Now, what we are going to implement is the functionality of holding the score. And remember, that happens whenever the users click on that button to hold the score. So when that happened, we want to add the current score to the total score, right? So let's see that in the demo version. So let's roll the dice. Okay, let's roll again. I am 0, no problem. Let's roll. Okay, so I have the 10 as the total number or the current score. Now, as I click in hold, you see that this point will basically transfer it to my global score. Okay, so in this case, 0 plus 10 will then be 10, and then we change to the next player. Okay, so let's come back to our chart. And so that's exactly what we have here in the flow chart, followed by the switching player, okay? Now, this switching of player only happens when the score is still below 100, because when the score is at least 100, the current player wins, okay? And so now let's implement basically this logic that we have here. So let's start. So we want something to happen when the user click on this button hold, okay? So it is button hold here, right? So let's take that and we added an event handler for this button. So it is button hold dot at event listener. And once more, the event it is click, and you write our function. Okay? The function that will be executed as the user clicks the button hold. And so let's again write some command to say what we want to happen here. So first, we added the current score to active player's score. Okay, it is the first thing. After a score here, the player's score. The second thing, the active player score, and here we check if score is already at least 100. Okay, and if so, then basically here what we do, here we finish the game. Okay, and if not, second case, let's write true here, false, the second case, switch. Also, no, we continue, of course, we finish the game. No, of course, switch to next player. Okay, good. So now we want to define the current player score. And remember, how I told you in the last video that to store the score, we are using this score variable. Remember? So this score is variable is this array which at the same time holds the score of player 0 and player 1. So player 0 at position 0 and player 1 at position 1. And so now we can use this the active player variable to get the current score of the current player. Okay, so let's do this here. So 1. Okay, so what we do, score of the active player, 0 or 1. So that's what I just explained, will be equals that score plus the current score. So we say, plus, okay, equal the current score. So again, when it's player 1, then this will be scores 1, but then player is 0, then it will be score 0. And then we take that value and add the current score to it and assign it again to score at the current active player. Okay? So just to make it 100% clear, if player is currently 1, like this, I can put it here to understand very well. I've updated, of course, after this. If it's player 1, okay, so here we have the score 1 plus current score. That is what I mean. Okay? So I can command this now. It is just for to understand what's happening here. So we change that score, and now we of course need to display it as well. And so now we'll do it in similar way to as we did up here, where we basically selected based on the active player. Okay, so let's do it. Document dot get element by ID. Okay, and now let's just check out again the name of the element. So here is it. Okay, so that's score 0 and score 1. So let's do it. So there are the IDs, and again we replace 0 and 1 here dynamically. Okay, so I open ternary operator. Where are you? Good, like this, and here it is score dash, and it is the active player. Okay, so simple. So when it is player 0, it will be score 0, and then that's the first score will be selected. And when it is player 1, well, then the other element will get selected. And then we can set here the text content, of course, to the score of the active player. Okay, so what we do, equal the current score of active player. Now I will save, of course, and so now our game should almost be finished. We'll be able to play is basically until infinity, but it will work, but actually it will not yet work because we haven't yet switched to the next player here. Okay, so right now, as we hold the score, we are not switching, so we are not checking if the score is greater than 100, but we are also not switching. And so let's leave that checking if the score is 100. So basically checking if the player won the game. Let's leave that for the end. And for now, let's just switch to the next player, because usually that is what we need to happen. Okay, so here I will do switch to the next player. Okay, so what I will do now, I will get this part of code. It's the same thing as you know. Okay, it will be very well same thing as we do before. So we still need, so let's copy it. Go to refactor. I put it here. Okay, switching in next player. So we still need to reset the current score to 0 here, both in our program and also on the user interface, which is what we do here. So we need to switch the player from 0 to 1 or from 1 to 0. And we need to toggle the player active class to show which player is the active one. So all of this code here, we need again down here. Okay, the same thing. Okay? But should I just go ahead and copy it now? And I hope that you already know the answer for that. So that should violate the don't repeat yourself principle. And so what I am going to do is simply take this code and I will put it into a function. Okay? So let's remove it from here. So let's take the code, this one. I just let the code or always all this one. Okay? And now, so I will cut this code here, okay? And then up here, I will create a function called switch player. Okay, it is function. Okay? And I put the code here. What is the close brackets? What is it? Yeah, no, I just put the code here. No difference. And this function does not need any argument at all or any parameter because the code is exactly the same in both situations. So usually when we are refactoring something like we are essentially doing here, then there is many times like small things that change in the code. And then it is very useful to have a parameter so that when we call the function, we can specify what changed. So that's what we did when we refactored some code in the first project. But here nothing changed. All we want to do is to simply repeat this code. And so we don't need any parameters and we don't need to return anything. So this is simply just a reusable piece of code. Okay? So now I will call, of course, this piece here, of course. Now we call it switch player. Okay? And of course I will call it here in this switch. So switch player. Good. And again, we then put this in a statement later. Once we check for the score to check if the player has won. But now we just want to make this game work. And so of course, after we hold the score, we need to switch to the next player. Okay? So exactly as it says here on our flow chart, except that we are now skipping for now this part. So we are going from add current score to total score directly to switch player, okay? So let's test our application. I just save here, I don't save it. And here I have application, so let's reload it. And so now, should be ready to test our own version, okay? So let's see. Okay. So now I have 9. Let's hold it now. Good. So the number is 9 here in the top, and also the current is 0. It works. Great. So let's play here a little bit. Good. 1, no problem. Let's play it here now. So as you can see, we accumulate here the current score as 11 point. Now I can hold them because before to get 1, and good. You see? So we end up with this 11 in the big score, and indeed it works perfectly. Okay? So I think this game is really a lot of fun to play, especially if you try it with someone else, which I actually did a couple of times as I was preparing this game. And I can tell you that's really fun. But now let's actually get the final part of this video, which is to check if someone reached the final goal of 100 points. And so, if that happens, the game is over and we should not be able to click any of the button anymore. And we also want to assign a special class to the winner player to make it really obvious that player has won. Okay, so let's do that. So that's added check here, and so that should not be too hard. Okay. So if here score of the current player, active player. Okay. So remember that is always here the score of the player that is currently active. So if that is greater or equal to 100, the player has won in this case. Okay. So this is where we finish the game. Okay, so let's move this this command here, like this. I use the keyboard, Alt plus arrow. So when we finish the game, we want to assign the player winner class. And let me show that to you in the CSS. Okay, here is it. So here we have a player winner, which has this darker background color. Okay, so let me copy this part. Oops. Player winner. This one. And here, let's now select actually the player. Okay, so here document dot query selector. Okay, with this class we have copy. Good. And let's again see our HTML and take a look at the code here, just so we don't make any mistake. And to the player is really a class player dash dash, and then the number of the active player. Okay. So this is, I come back here. So here, of course, not here. I don't put a player here, so I just move this one. I need the class that you have seen on HTML. Don't worry. Okay. So it is dot. I repeat this one, of course. Player, this one, dash dash active player. Okay. So let's do that. Dot player dash dash, and it is the active player. No, of course, the train operator. Like this. Dash dash the active player here. Okay, and then onto this element we want to take the class list dot class list, and then added this class that we just copied from the CSS. So dot added and this class. Okay, but without the dot. Like this. Okay, and then we also want to remove the active class here. Okay, so where is that? In the, let's see here. Okay, we need to remove this one. So when we switch the player, we turn on this player active, right? But now we then need to remove that, because otherwise we'll have the active player class at the same time as the player winner class. So let's fix that. But we simply need to select the same element again. And then here, of course, we remove player active. Okay, so let's do that. So the same thing, I put the same element, but we need the remove class, not the add. So here, dot remove class. And here I will remove, as I said, the class player. Okay, so I hope that made sense. And now let's test it and make it a little bit faster. Let's actually just change this one to 20. okay, because 100 is very long. Otherwise, it's gonna take a lot of time for reaching 100 point, right? Before we do that, let's now actually put this switching player in the else block. Okay, so I will use the button. So I move this one here in the else. Okay, so when the game finished, we of course do not want to switch the player, but if it does, not only then we do switch the player. So let's test our application. So let's reload. Good. So I don't think maybe this one. I don't need it. So here we will if it's remember 20. Okay. So let's roll this a couple of times. Hold. And this one who win. Okay. Switching. Hold. Good. You see? So now, as you can see, we got this winner class here showing that player 1, player 2 here won the game. Okay, because we have reached the 20. So now the problem is first that we are still showing the dice. Okay, so we want to get rid of that, but even worse is that we can still click on this button also. Okay, you see in the hold and the roll, we can do it. You see, we can play again. We can actually still play in the game, so you will see that everything works the same. Okay, so if I come back here, do you see? Hold, and here I continue, roll, but I'm not here. Tack, I'm the one, I can roll, tack, hold, tack, hold. I can also win this one, we need the game. See? Hold, do you see? All the both. So the both players wins. Okay? So it is not good. So this is next thing that we need to solve, and let's think how we could solve this. And for me, I think the easiest solution is to create a variable that hosts the state of the game, so if we are still playing or not. So this is gonna be a state variable which kind of tells us the condition of system. In this case, the condition will be is the game playing or not. And so if the game is playing, then we can click these buttons and then everything will work as normally. But then, as soon as the game is finished, we will say that the game is no longer playing. And then we can no longer click on these buttons. Alright? So I hope that sounds good to you. So let's implement it. Okay, so here I will of course declare my variable here. So I will do it here, let's playing, and now we will be use a boolean value. Okay, so let's start, let's call it playing, let playing, and yes, we continue to play. We start with true. So at the beginning of the game we are of course playing, and so playing is true, and then when we finish the game we will set the playing to false. So that's in this case. Okay, so we finish the game, and then first thing here, oops, where I am here, the first thing to do is playing equal to false here, the first thing. Okay, now this is in itself will of course not yet do anything. So we only defined whether the game is playing or not, but none of our code is reacting to that. So remember that we only want to be able to click on this button once we are playing. And so let's define that. And so let's go to the first button. Okay, which is this button roll. And so basically what we can do now is that all of this logic here should only be executed if you are playing. Alright, so that's simply enough. So let's just say here if playing, okay, like this, and then as we save it, so top, I will close here, of course, all of this code. Normally, no, as we say, if you save it, if you have good refactoring your code, or if you have configured your PTL as well, the code will take off indenting all the code, and it would put it nice and beautiful. But me, I have downloaded the latest version, and I don't configure it yet. Don't worry about this. Now, play here is boolean variable, and that's why we don't have to write any condition like this. For example, playing equal true. We don't need to write this, okay? Because this boolean variable. So I'll just put refactoring some code here. Let's just add some indent like this. Because again, playing itself is already a boolean, so we don't need to check if true is equal to true. And so now, when we click on this button, while the game is no longer playing, then nothing will happen. And so that's the beauty and the goal of having this playing variable. And now let's do the same with this second button. So I'll copy this if, and I put it here, the same thing. Okay. Close. So I have forgot to reconfigure my prettier because I have downloaded a new version. Don't worry about this, as I said. So if playing, then do all of this, and then it will be beautiful and back to normal. And to now, as soon as one player wins, we will finish the game and set playing to false. And so the next time we click off any this button, then here playing will be false. And then none of this code will be executed, and the same here of this button for rolling the dice. Okay? So I hope you were able to follow that logic. And so maybe you can use this kind of logic in your own project as well. And this is actually the reason why it is so cool to start building projects as games, because in games we need a lot of this type of logic. And so it is really fun to demonstrate all of these different aspects that are quite common actually in programming. So state variable like this playing here is very usual in programming. As you can start to get used to something needed, a variable like that. So let's test our application now. I'll reload again. And now let's try out again, and remember that we still can win the game at 20. And just to make sure, I have reload the page, okay? So let's do it until to win. No problem, we do it here. Hold. Until to win, hold. Hold. Oops. Hold. Good. And now I want the game here, and now let's see what happens when I click in any button. So roll, as you can see, nothing happened, and the same for hold. Nothing happened, nothing. Okay, so this button, of course, like you can still click them, but nothing happened. Good, that's awesome. There is just one last thing to do, which is to get rid, of course, of this dice here. Okay, so let's come back to our JavaScript code. So here we have, what is it? We have to display the dice. Okay, this path. And so let's just copy this basically. Okay, and this hidden glass back on. So right here, for example, and so now, instead of removing it, we just edit it back. So here I will do, not remove, I will do add. Okay. Now save your file, of course. Don't remove. Don't forget to do this. And let's test our application again. We do it fast. Load. Okay. So let's go in. hold. Oops. No problem. Good. Now, as you can see, the dice is gone. Awesome. So we are almost done here with this project. So our game works really great. And there is left to do now is to implement this new game button here. So we could of course play again by reloading the page. But it is always nice to have button to simply reset the game. And so let's move this feature on the next video inshallah. And do that to finish this project. Okay? So I hope you are enjoying with this project. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel please, Faisal Azib. Like this video, share it with your friends. Follow me until the end of this course. And visit the website Linux Char. I tell you goodbye. Wassalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.